All right, you ready? You ready?
Sure.
All good? Perfect. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another Leaders Unplugged podcast. My name is Devin. This is my co-host, Jackson. And today we are here with a very special guest. He is a bass singer in a super popular acapella group called Home Free. It's Tim Foust. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I guess we could just hop right into it, right?
Sure, yeah.
So the first, and I think this is kind of like a big overall question, is how did you get into music?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I've sung my whole life. I don't recall a time not singing. In fact, by the time this is airing, I'm guessing there will be a video out where I'm singing with my mom a song that she sang to me as a baby, and so it's a 42 year in the making project, because there's actually a cassette tape of her singing "You Are My Sunshine" to me, and I'm like trying to sing along, but I can't really form words yet, but I'm already matching pitch, and so yeah, we revisited that and did a duet of that together 42 years later. So literally like singing before I could form words. So I credit my mom with really teaching me like how to sing and passing on her love of music to me. And then I had some music teachers in school that played a really vital role. As early as kindergarten, my elementary school music teacher, Miss Dehart, shout out to Miss Dehart. She would always have me sing solos, in the little music productions you do in school. And I didn't really think much about it. It was just like an assignment. So I just like did what I was told to do, not realizing at the time that what it was doing was making me super comfortable singing in front of people on stage, in front of my peers and family and also strangers. And then, fast forward to middle school and high school, I had some teachers there that were like, that really changed my life. Like that's where all my formal education came from. Renee Close, shout out Renee. She heard me and some buddies just harmonizing on the back of the bus on a field trip basically. And she pulled me aside and she said, "You guys like are good at that. You have a knack for that. And I would encourage you to like do something with that, like get more serious about it. Maybe find a fourth guy and learn some Christmas songs, and you might be able to like get hired for private parties and things like that." So as early as I guess I was probably a sophomore, junior at that point, and that's the first time I'd ever considered like making money, making music. And so we did what she told us to do, and it worked. Like we started getting hired, and so I was like hooked immediately. Right. So that's what really like sent me on the path that I'm on now.
Wow, that's actually really cool. So what was the first, when you're like, I really want to get into music, were you originally thinking like a group, or did you want to do like solo stuff, or?
Always group. I always enjoyed harmonizing and, singing with a bunch of folks. That's kind of what I've always done. Like a little solo stuff on the side, but even in that context, it's always called Tim Foust and Friends. And, there's always a lot of harmony, and we pass the leads around and stuff like that. But yeah, from the get-go, when I got serious about making music, it was always in the context of an ensemble.
That's really cool.
What's the one thing that makes a group setting like more appealing to you? What's the one thing you enjoy most about it?
I think, the camaraderie. I've always just like been drawn to harmony too. So like, even outside of just like acapella stuff, which is, definitely my main focus for the last 20 years. Even the music I listen to, if it has instruments, I still want it to have a ton of vocal harmony. I think it's a preference thing. It's also partially like, like how I was raised. I grew up in the Church of Christ, which is all acapella, and raised on like acapella gospel music. But even like the contemporary stuff we listen to, my mom really liked that kind of stuff too, like the doo-wop groups of the 50s and 60s. the Beach Boys, you know, a lot of those groups that just have a ton of harmony in what they do.
As far as like inspirations go, who are like some of your main inspirations? Like you mentioned Beach Boys. Were those some of your main inspirations that helped like boost the motivation to like pursue music further?
Ooh, probably so. I mean, it definitely, you know, like I said, like fine-tuned my preference and what my focus ended up being once I started pursuing music, and trained my ear, you know, as well. Like I was always trying to listen to the different parts and figure out who was singing what. There's a group actually called Acapella, which just has had like a crazy arsenal of talent throughout the years. And they really inspired me. The guy who started and is kind of the main driver behind that is named Keith Lancaster. Shout out Keith. And he's a phenomenal writer as well, writer and arranger. So he inspired me as a songwriter. And then all those guys as vocalists, they have some like, you know, freaky basses. That was one of the first places I heard, you know, like monster basses, you know, that sang lower than I realized was possible really. But back then I was a squeaky high tenor, but I always thought like, man, one day I'd like to sing like that. But then outside of that, my biggest influence, I would say, is Billy Joel. He's my all-time favorite artist, just an absolute genius musician and writer and lyricist and all the things. Yeah.
And one question that I had was like, when and how did you get your first tour? That was like, whether it be with like Home Free or just like even before that, when did you get your first tour, and how did that like come about?
Sure. Okay, so I mean, I had started doing some shows with that group that I had in high school, and did that even into college. Although in college I didn't I didn't study music. I was actually a pre-dental major for some reason. Because even then I wasn't really like considering making a living with music because I didn't like really think it was possible, honestly. You know, because we like though we were like making some money making music, it wasn't like what you could live on, right. You know. But even that, like, I went from doing it just for fun and for free to making some money. So any money was like blew my mind, and so I just kind of thought, well, I could always just do that, you know. Like I thought I was going to go be an orthodontist, but I always thought, you know, I could sing a little bit on the side or whatever. But I didn't know enough about the industry. You have to realize this is also the very early days of the internet. Mm-hmm. And so there weren't as many resources back then. YouTube was not a thing. You know, this is like before social media, like none of that exists. It's basically like just Google, but even Google didn't exist. It was something called Ask Jeeves. And so just like early search engines and like some message boards were the way people were connecting. And so I didn't realize how many opportunities were out there. I thought like, okay, you either get a record deal or you go on Broadway and that's it. You know, that's all I knew. And so I thought I'd better get a real job. So while I was, you know, studying in college, I was still doing this other group on the side. And, you know, 2 years into college, I was like, this sucks. You know, and it was like the music thing was kind of nagging at me, you know, and I was like, I feel like I have to try to figure this out. Also, somewhere along the line, I discovered the group Acapella, which are just total trailblazers. They basically started the formula that we all follow now, you know, like full-time beatboxer, like actual contemporary. And so that opened my mind up to what the real possibility of a cappella music was. And so I started searching message boards for like groups that needed a bass, like groups like Rockapella basically. And I found a startup group in Minneapolis. For some reason, the Midwest is a hotbed of acapella music. And so I reached out to them, found out later that I was like their first applicant. It was just like coincidental, but I guess I found their message like moments after they posted it. They were 3 guys who were about to graduate from Berklee College of Music, and they were all gonna move to Minnesota and start a group there because we had some resources there. And yeah, I contacted them, found a guy in my area who like could do some recording, because you know they sent me stuff and they're like, all right, record yourself singing along to this. And luckily my mom knew a guy, and so I tracked some stuff and moved up to Minnesota, got the gig, and was kind of like out of my depth a little bit because, like I said, these guys are all graduating from Berklee College of Music, and all my formal training was in high school, and luckily like I had learned a lot of solfege and sight reading and things like that, and proper singing techniques, but their music knowledge was a whole other level in theory and all that stuff. So it was kind of a crash course for me. But there's a group called the Blenders who had started in Minnesota, and are really the reason why there's so much acapella there, because they inspired many groups like this. This group was called Blue Jupiter. This was 2001. And the Blenders were sort of like wanting to scale back a lot. They had been touring full time, and then they kind of wanted to switch to this business model of like only doing Christmas shows and then the rest of the year not doing much. And so one of their members agreed to manage us and help us get agents and stuff like that, and try to send gigs our way that they were turning down. And so one of the first agencies we signed with was a college agent, because that's a whole separate ecosystem in the music industry, a whole like tour in and of itself, and a whole market basically. And so they sent us out to showcases. It's called NACA, the National Association of Campus Activities, I believe. And I mean, I assume it's still going. It was this really vibrant thing back then. And yeah, most colleges have this like board made up of students who kind of decide like how the entertainment budget is spent. And so they go to all these conferences where there's showcases. And so they're kind of regional. So you send in a video, you apply. If you get accepted, huge deal. Looking back, like we probably shouldn't have our first time around, but we did. We got accepted to a few different markets. And so you go and you perform for all of these like kids from colleges all over the region. They come and watch like a few days of everyone doing 15 minutes of what they do. And then they decide who of that they want to like bring to their school. And so that's really how I got my first tour ever. It was a college tour. That's a complicated question and complicated answer. It depends on what you want to do exactly.
Should we focus on like, I guess, singing, like acapella or something like that?
I mean, if you want to be a performer, it's not really necessary, but it also depends on how much experience and study you have up to that point. You know, like if you really lived and breathed it in high school and you got a lot of formal training, maybe not necessary. You know, if you had a vocal coach, maybe not necessary. If you want to be a writer, there's some really valuable like writing courses, you know, creative writing that's available in the college level that might help you. So I mean, I would say outside of like music education, you know, it's probably not necessary. That having been said, there's a lot to be learned there too. So I don't know, maybe try it out. But I mean, in my experience, there's just no substitute for just like doing it and like networking and you know, I mentioned writing, even that, just like doing it, just like listen to, you know, start dissecting what you enjoy and figuring out, you know, how to do your version of that, and then working with other people. You know, we're here in Nashville right now, the home of the co-write, where it's like all day, every day, people schedule writing sessions where you get together with 2, 3, 4 other writers and bounce ideas off each other. And that's a really great way to learn how to do it too. Yeah, like I said, complicated answer.
Yeah, and then for young adults and like college students, what's one thing that you would have like as a recommendation to like start doing now to eventually get into the music industry?
Yeah, I mean, mostly just networking, but first and foremost, just like do it. You have to just do it. You have to get out there and you know, whatever your art is, you have to like put that out in front of people, which is kind of a scary thing, you know. These days, the internet and social media is a really valuable tool, you know. It can also be brutal, you know. So it's like just know that when you're releasing something, you know, you're opening yourself up to criticism, and you know, it's gonna come in all different forms. There's like, you know, positive stuff. There's lovingly negative feedback, and then there's also just like trolls. You know, there's like people that their version of entertainment is just like being mean to other people online. You know, so you have to be prepared for all that. But then also you have to do it live and in front of people as well. You just have to like get those reps. So, you know, start getting really comfortable performing, making your music, but also just interacting with an audience and putting everyone at ease, making it look really natural. I think it's important to like learn how to converse with your audience too, you know, and not just go, okay, here's another song. Okay, here's the next one. You know,
Yeah.
like just a little bit of that. But then beyond that, I would say think outside the box and research opportunities. Because like I mentioned, when I was first starting out, I didn't realize how much there actually was out there. So like just the cruise ship world alone is thousands and thousands of entertainment gigs of all type, you know, singers, dancers, musicians, all the things. You know, for example, any given ship, you know, has like the main stage cast, which is like a handful of singers and then like twice as many dancers, and then there's all the musicians as well. And then outside of that, you know, there's like the various venues on the ship that might have like a singer-songwriter or a piano player. So, you know, one ship alone probably has like 20 plus vocalist positions. And that's one ship on one cruise line. You know, you look at Royal Caribbean, I don't know, 20, 30 ships. I don't know how many ships they have now, you know, so you multiply 20 by 20, you know, it's like, there you go. There's like 400 singing positions at least just on Royal Caribbean. And then there's like so many cruise lines. There's a bunch of cruise lines that most of us have never even heard of, you know? So like I said, just that industry alone is like so many gigs that people don't think about. And especially for a young person, it's a dream gig. Like you're getting paid to travel the world and see places that everyone else is paying to go to. You know, you're getting paid to do that. Your room and board is covered. You're getting fed. you know? And so it's great experience. It's a great way to network and meet people. That's how like Home Free met half of the people we work with at this point. In fact, Adam Bastine, our new high tenor, we met him on a cruise ship. We went on as guest entertainers, and yeah, so many of the folks I've worked with through the years I met on cruise ships. Outside of that, there's like the theme park world. They all have like entertainment positions, so many, you know, and there's countless theme parks around the world, you know, so it's like there really are a ton of ways that people like can make a living making music, you know, if you do your research and seek it out.
Right. Yeah. And I know like for theme parks, at least, Jeff Castellucci, he worked at Disney for a while and he sang and did those songs. So, I mean, yeah, it's definitely possible.
Yeah. On the topic of, you were talking about, you know, there's criticism online and, you know, all the reactions of people. And considering you're pretty popular, you know, you've got your whole acapella group and everything. How do you personally handle the hate and the, you know, the rude people on the internet judging every move that you do now, kind of thing?
For the most part, I don't read it. And you know, I mean, it's hard to avoid. You'll see some like negativity sometimes, and yeah, I mean, it sucks every time. You know, it's not fun, but then you have to try to be objective about it and ask yourself, like, okay, is this person just having a bad day? Is this person just here to spread negativity? Or is this like, you know, feedback that I should consider? You have to do more of that when you're starting out too, you know, because you also like, you do want to know what people want to see and hear and stuff, you know. So if it feels like objective criticism, you might want to factor that in early on, you know. But these days, you know, I should go on social media more to post, honestly. But I just don't. And you know, fortunately, like, at least in the case of Home Free, you know, we've got like a team of people around us that help with all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's I wish I had a better answer.
No,
for that.
no worries.
But you know, also once you have a following of people that like what you do, like they handle the
Yeah,
souls.
they kind of outnumber it. So
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think for sure starting out, you're gonna have a lot more people criticizing, right? Because it's being recommended to just random people. But yeah, I guess once you have a bigger following, I mean,
It also seems to just like carry more weight for some reason, you know? It's like you can have all of these like positive comments, and then the one person who's on there just being mean, like that's the one that catches your eye, you know? Yeah. And so I guess easier said than done, but just like, yeah, focus on the people that are enjoying what you're doing.
that's a good point.
And for being in the music industry, what would you say are some personality traits that help in people wanting to be a part of that, but also what might be some personality traits that might detract from that, so it might inhibit someone?
Sure. Wow. I mean, I think it helps to be extroverted. It's not impossible to do it if you're an introvert. That could inhibit a bit, but I've worked with plenty of introverts, and you know, you just have to like know yourself and what you need, and like learn how to recharge in the context of what's available to you. You know, for example, we tour on a tour bus, so you're around people all the time. You know, sometimes like the only private sanctuary you have is your bunk on a bus. which is like a tiny, we call them coffins, because that's kind of what it feels like. But when that's your, you know, the only space you're guaranteed to have to yourself that's quiet, sometimes you just gotta like go be there, you know, because you know the moment you wake up in the morning and you get out of your bunk, you're gonna probably run into somebody. You know, you don't know what the venue's gonna be like. You may not have your own dressing room, but chances are people are gonna be like hanging out in the front lounge. You know, so it helps to be extroverted, but if you are introverted, you've gotta like really be diligent about looking out for your own mental health. And on that topic too, I would say this isn't a trait, but an asset. I think just like mental health and wellness is really important aspect for a full-time musician, because it's an abnormal like way to make a living, you know, and there's a lot of trial and error and a lot of like failure and rejection and yeah, you know, and you're like bearing your soul to people and putting out art, and that's a hard thing to do. So yeah, I would just encourage a support system, friends and family, but also, you know, therapists. I'm trying to think of other traits. Yeah, I mean, I guess like helps to be a little thick-skinned, helps to be, you know, confident, like you believe in yourself, to be able to walk that fine line between being confident and being conceited. While also like remaining grounded too, you know. So have a good head on your shoulders, and then that's also where like the support system comes in too, like where you want like real friends who are going to tell you if you're getting too big for your britches.
Right. Yeah.
And then
Oh, okay. I was just thinking, because you mentioned a little bit of mental health and stuff. So on that kind of overarching like topic of struggles, when you were getting into the industry, and even now, like what struggles have you come across that have affected your life or even your career in different ways?
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, because I always tell young people, like, don't do it unless you're willing to do it for free. Like, you have to love it that much. But then if you do love it that much, just keep doing it no matter what. But that can be hard, because like I said, there's a lot of failure and a lot of rejection and a lot of like, you know, a lot of times you have to like do it wrong before you figure out how to do it right. And so, yeah, it can be tough if, you know, the early years when you're paying your dues and you, you know, you believe in what you're doing, but it's maybe not going as well as you hoped or as quickly as you hoped. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like specific failures and struggles, but it's more general than that. It's you know, there's a period of time where there's kind of a leap of faith that is required, where there's a certain amount of time and energy that is required of you to do it, but you're maybe not making enough money yet. So you have to like, you make a choice where it's like, okay, I have to like give up my day job basically to give this music thing a real shot. And so it's really scary. And then, you know, it might take a while, or you might, you know, have to like burn through your savings, or, you know, borrow money from your family or whatever. And that can be scary. And there's like a lot of setbacks along the way. You'll get some momentum. You know, you have like a really busy season or something, and everything feels like it's going well. And then a few steps back, you know, like progress isn't linear, you know. It's, and so there's that, but you know, when it comes to like mental health, I would say beyond that too, outside of like particular struggles or challenges, like we as Home Free, like we've been through 2 rounds of band therapy. And like, not because like we were necessarily in crisis. I mean, you know, obviously it can be tough when, you know, you have 5 very different personalities from 5 different backgrounds, and you are spending most of your time together. But then on top of that, like for us, we travel with 5 crew members at least. So there's 10 people, you know, who didn't grow up together, you know, who like weren't childhood friends. We come from all different walks of life, and now we're living on a bus together for weeks at a time. You know, it's like, that's a recipe for friction, you know.
Right.
Fortunately, we don't have a lot, but that's because we have made a concerted effort to be better humans, but also just like be better business owners and coworkers and all that. So like I said, we've had 2 rounds of where like we've done an intensive, like spent a whole weekend, like Friday, Saturday, morning to night, sitting down as a band with a therapist, just like trying to figure out like, okay, how can we do this better?
Yeah. So I kind of want to go back to college, because you mentioned becoming an orthodontist. What was the interest there? Why becoming an orthodontist?
I don't have a good answer for that. My thinking at the time was I wanted to like work with people. I wanted to make good money, but I didn't want to like deal with anything real nasty. So I thought, well, dentists, they have to deal with like the nasty stuff. Orthodontists, they just straighten teeth. I'll do that.
Yeah.
That's fun. And then also with Home Free, how did you get into Home Free? Like how did you have to audition? Like what was the first steps? Like how did you join Home Free?
Sure. So I've been doing this type of thing for a long time. Early on, I saw the value in networking. In Blue Jupiter, we had this great plan in place on paper, but you know, it never pans out like you think. So I guess that'll answer your other question about that was the earliest struggle, I guess, where, you know, looking back now, it was too good to be true. And so things went well. Like we had a lot of gigs and stuff, and we put out an album that I'm still super proud of. But it wasn't really taken off the way it was supposed to, or the way it needed to be really sustaining in the long term. So I started like networking like crazy early on. Now part of that's just natural. I just like people and meeting people and knowing people and staying in touch with people. But also it's very valuable like in the career. So I started making a lot of contacts in the vocal music world early on, and ended up like auditioning for Acapella when their bass left, and I didn't get that gig, but I stayed in touch with them, and their beatboxer Jeff Thatcher, shout out Jeff, helped me further network because he was super plugged in, and he told me about this group out in Boston called Ball in the House, still going, still rad. And that was my second gig. So I went from Blue Jupiter startup group, like learning how to do the thing, a lot of failure. From there, I auditioned for Ball in the House, got that gig, and now all of a sudden I'm like getting a salary to make music. So that was the first time I felt what it felt like to actually support myself, you know, and make a living making music. And then also did some like cruise ship stuff here and there as a performer, but also on the production side, like I started putting together vocal groups and sending them and stuff like that. Ended up subbing in with a group called the Alley Cats, and yeah, just like it all boils down to networking basically. And so I'd sort of like made a name for myself in the acapella world, and you have to realize back then, like pre-sing off, pitch perfect, like acapella was almost like more of this like niche underground thing. So kind of everybody who was making a living at it knew each other for the most part. And so Home Free was familiar with like the work I had done, you know. And when Blue Jupiter put out that first album, you know, like people paid attention. They're like, who's this like 20-year-old bass singer, you know? And so when Home Free was going to do their very first tour ever, they reached out to me originally looking for bass singer recommendations, because I also had this like database of singers at this point from all the groups I had sung with, and then all the production I'd done for cruise ship acapella and stuff like that. I just kind of had this database of singers. So I sent them like 5 names. None of them panned out. And so then they said, is there any way you would consider doing this tour? And I was like, I don't know. I hadn't been doing much a cappella at that point outside of like subbing in for the Alley Cats. I was living out in Southern California, writing full time for a production company out there. And I had just started doing a little bit of solo country stuff. And so that's like how they sweeten the deal. They're like, we'll learn one of your songs and we'll sell your EP on this tour. And so the guy I was working for at the time, he really liked that idea. So he said, yeah, go do it. So I went out there, and you know, it was like you know, rediscovering your first love all over again. Yeah, you know, I got out there and I was like, man, this is really fun. I had forgotten how great this feels to do this thing like that I originally left home for, originally quit college to go do contemporary a cappella, and like now I'm doing it again. And so yeah, I mean that's how it started basically. And then after that, I went back out. They went to their jobs, you know, because they still had jobs, and then 6 months later they did a Christmas tour. I went and did that, and basically I ended up telling them like, let me know when you're full time and I don't have to live in Minnesota, and we'll chat.
That's incredible. And so as you were talking, we've covered a lot of different moments in your life, kind of thing, and maybe some of those are the answer to this question. But what would you say was kind of a moment in your life where you're like, I made the right choice going into music, and then maybe a moment in your life where you doubted yourself, like maybe I didn't make the right choice?
Oh.
How did you kind of handle those situations?
Yeah. I would say it happened a little differently than that, because I did Ball in the House for 3 years, and like I said, it's, you know, you finally get what you wanted. You're making a living making music, and then and you know, I had done Blue Jupiter for like between 2 and 3 years. So at this point in time, you know, I've spent like the better part of a decade like away from home and away from family and friends, and was like really missing them. And we grinded it out in Ball in the House too. We do like 250 shows a year, because we did a lot of educational stuff. So some days we do like, you know, 3 performances in a school where you're like teaching kids about music and stuff, and then that night also do a concert, you know. So it's like you're really grinding it out. And so it was in such a weird situation where like all of a sudden I have everything I thought I wanted, and I was like considering like stopping, you know, and which is what I ended up doing. I ended up leaving Ball in the House, and I moved back to Texas, and I was like substitute teaching and like trying to figure out what I wanted to do, because at that point in time I was kind of like sick of living out of a suitcase, you know. And I felt like I wanted to make up for time I'd missed with family and friends and stuff like that. And so it wasn't like, did I make a mistake? It was more like, okay, did I do it? I did the thing, you know?
Yeah.
And I sort of felt like I don't know if this is how I want to live out my career necessarily. And turns out, the universe had other plans for me, because I, at this point in time, am like doing subbing gigs with the Alley Cats. They have an interesting business model where they have like, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 guys maybe who are all like know the gig. And so they'll just book 3 different shows on the same day in different parts of the country, and then just like fill it with staff later, kind of. And so, they had their main bass singer who was in California and kind of did most of those gigs, but was looking to travel less. And so, I was kind of their first call guy when they would do something elsewhere. And so I kind of thought like, well, that might be great. Like I can be home, I can, I don't know, get a normal job, go back to school maybe. And then when I feel like it, go do this Alley Cat gig and get a taste of that. And, that might be enough for me. And then I got the one call that would make me go back into full-time music. And it was this guy out in California who was starting a production company and wanted to form a writing team. And the Alley Cats had passed my info along to him and some of my stuff. And they were like, hey, we know this really great writer who's sitting in Texas, not doing any of that. And he said, hey, I want to fly you out here and co-write and just see if we gel. And then the Alley Cats too, they're like, we'll give you some gigs while you're out here. So I had nothing to lose, and ended up going well. And he said, okay, well, if you agree to move out to California, I'll give you a house to live in, my own house, like an actual house in Orange County, California. He's like, I'll give you a house to live in, I'll give you a car to drive, and then I'll pay you a salary to just write whatever you want to write.
Oh my gosh.
And if you write something good, then we'll go into this $2 million facility and record it and hire the best session players from LA. And I'm like, well, I can't not do that.
Right.
So at that point in time, looking back now, it was maybe I made the wrong decision leaving music, and when I look back now, like there's so many instances like that where like music wasn't done with me, and so I kind of wish I would have like listened to the universe more and stayed out of my own way more. Fun fact, I voted no on going on the sing-off. I've been on the wrong side of so many votes. So that's why it's also helpful, I think, to be in an ensemble and treat it democratically, because like, thank God I got outvoted.
Yeah.
Because we went on the sing-off and we won, and that's like why I'm sitting here talking to you guys right now.
That's crazy, actually.
Yeah. So like, tell us more about the sing-off. How did that happen, and why did you say no originally?
Okay, so it's so funny the way that works. So I'm out in California writing, like not really necessarily even wanting to be like a full-time performer, but subbing in with the Alley Cats, writing music. The guy I'm working for ends up twisting my arm into kind of like doing a solo thing that I didn't care about that much, but I was like, why not? But funny backstory, when the sing-off started, like all these groups reached out to me and they were like, hey, will you come like audition for us for the sing-off? And I was like, no, I don't think, it was just, I at that point in time, I felt like I've been there, done that kind of thing a little bit. Strangely enough, for season 2, Street Corner Symphony, like they had even gotten accepted onto the show, and then their bass wasn't able to do it. So they even called me and they were like, hey, will you come be on national television with us? And I still said no. And I don't know why, I was just being stubborn, or like I said, at that point in time, I sort of felt like, I'd already done, I left the full-time contemporary acapella thing, because I did it and I was, it was starting to feel like work. It wasn't as fun anymore. And so, right, like I feel like I've kind of got the best of all the worlds right now. I'm getting paid to write music, and I still get to go do the Alley Cats, get a taste of that. so strangely enough, when I said no, they like were out of options, and one of them ended up reaching out to just a guy he kind of knew from a college choir, and that guy ended up being Adam Chance, who is now our baritone in Home Free. So it's one of those things too, where it's hard to look back and regret any choices you've made, because ultimately they've led me to here, you know, and I can't help but wonder, like, if I had done something different along the way, would any of this have panned out, you know? And so, you know, just down to that one thing, if I had jumped at the chance to go be on national TV, somewhat against my better judgment, you know, like I wasn't excited about it, but I, you know, of course it's tempting, like, well, do I go be and sing in front of 10 million viewers, you know? But if I say yes to that, I never like meet Adam Chance. Also, I'm in Street Corner Symphony now, so the version of Home Free that exists now probably wouldn't exist at all. So there's just like all these little things like that.
What? Yeah, that's crazy. All the variables that had to line up.
It's like the you know, they call it the butterfly effect. If you,
Right.
you change one little thing in history, like it could have a huge impact on what's happened. So anyway, long story short, if I, you know, had stayed in Ball in the House longer, if I, you know, hadn't accepted that guy's offer to go out to California, if I had said yes to that offer to go be on TV, like we're not sitting here right now. Like all of the, you know, the things that have happened with Home Free in the last 10 years, like probably don't happen. Certainly not the way it looks or sounds.
And for Home Free, when you guys were on the sing-off, what was it, do you think, that led you guys to win the sing-off?
Oh, also, so let me back up and say that's sort of why Home Free auditioned for the sing-off every year, and but with, you know, with a completely different cast of people, you know, and so this was now going to be season 4. At this point in time, I'm full time with Home Free. They finally went full time, and they're like, "You can live in Texas," and I was like, "Great." And so we're like back touring full time, but I'm still getting to be home with family and friends, and we're doing a lot of like guest entertainer work on cruise ships, and they're like, "Hey, there's a sing-off audition. I think we should go do it." I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." You know, I'm like, I've said no to this so many times already with other groups and stuff, and you know, it was. Do I be delicate about this? I didn't see season 3. Some of the other stuff was just like kind of corny early on. Like I really dug what Street Corner Symphony did, but some of what was about the sing-off, certainly season 1, which I did watch, was like really contrived and corny, and yeah, for me off-putting, and even for like some promoters and stuff, you know, when they'd hear your acapella, they'd be like, "Hey, you're not like that show, right?" Luckily, it evolved and it got better, but we were on our way to do a cruise gig, and we joined the ship in Jersey, just outside of New York, and there was an audition like the day before, and so Royal Caribbean's flying us in. You know, it's not costing us any money. We have to be there anyway. And so at that point in time, you know, everyone was kind of like, why not? You know, like there's no good excuse not to.
Yeah.
And so, you know, sure enough, we auditioned and you know, and then we got on and thank God we did. Thank God I got outvoted, you know? But it's a wild experience. I mean, it's important to realize that it's first and foremost a reality television show, more so than it is a singing competition. You know, it's it's TV, it's entertainment, it's run by producers who are just trying to make good TV. They're not super concerned about vocal health or mental health or all those kind of things, you know. So it was brutal. We were doing like 16-hour days.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Huh.
Most of that's for like the opening numbers. Have you guys seen the sing off? Do you like seen some old clips? So they, you know, each episode starts with a big group number of whoever the contestants are left at that point. So, you know, the first episode is there's like 10 groups, and some of those groups are college groups, you know, with like a bunch of members. So it's like just dozens of people on stage all at once singing and dancing. And so just to like learn the staging and get all the camera blocking and stuff done for that, like it takes, like that's what you work the most on all week. And then on top of that, you know, there's the song that you compete with. You have to learn another song that's like your battle song if you end up being in the bottom two. You know, you have to like do that one as well. And then outside of that, there's just like the interviews and all the various things that go into make a reality television show. And then outside of that, you're locked in a hotel. Like they sequester you, and you're like not allowed to leave. And it's a pretty wild experience. It's for sure like the hardest thing we've ever done.
Huh. I mean, it sounds wild. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds intense.
Yeah.
For Home Free, I'm kind of curious, what is like one thing that you admire about each person in Home Free, each other singer?
Oh wow. Yeah. So Adam Chance is unabashedly authentic, and I love that about himself. He knows who he is, and he's like not gonna make any compromises. And he also just like brings kind of a cool like rawness to what we do. He's got such a cool kind of smoky vocal quality that's brought such a rad texture to Home Free. And I like that he brings, you know, like the outlaw country and rock influence to what we do. He's got a huge range, and so, you know, he's one of our utility vocalists. So if I'm singing lead, he can go cover bass, which is really cool. And let's see, Rob is I like admire his spirit. He's just like brings such nice energy to what we do. He's hilarious. But he is a vocal powerhouse. He's kind of like our secret weapon. Like, I feel like people don't really know how good he is and how versatile he is. He can like literally sing anything from pop to opera, to R&B. I mean, he can just like do it all, and his like pitch is so good. So he's like, we have our inner monitors, and we each have our individual mixes. So you decide, you know, how much you want of one of each thing. And so it's like, you know, loudest in my ear is me, but just under that is Rob, because I know he's rock solid. Adam Rupp is, he works so hard at what he does. Like he's a phenomenal beatboxer, and he could just easily, you know, coast on that. But he is like always fine-tuning his craft and like learning new sounds and perfecting the sounds he already does. And he really pushes us from an arrangement standpoint. You know, for each song, he's really dissecting it and thinking like, how can we make it better, you know, on the album, but then also if we choose to put in our show, it's like, okay, well, what can we bring something new and interesting to it? And then he's also like always working on becoming a better singer too, because for the first, you know, 10 years of Home Free, he was focused on beatboxing and not doing a ton of singing. And so now we're at a point where, you know, a lot of times we'll want a fifth part, we'll want him to sing something. And so the last few years, he's really dedicated himself to getting his singing chops better too. So yeah, just a really like hard hard worker, you know, who's like always pushing himself and us. And then Adam Bastine, I mean, voice of an angel, also super versatile. You know, has one of those full voices that just like, you know, goes forever, and then falsetto beyond that. But I just like more so admire him as a person. He's just like one of the sweetest humans I've ever known. He has a heart of gold, and he's just like brought such a kind of a light to Home Free. He's like kind of made it fun again, and you know, it was, looking back now, we kind of realized like, oh, it was starting to like feel like work again, and you know, and it makes me think of like my time in Ball in the House. It was like, because we grinded it out for about 10 years after the sing off, you know, like just taking every gig, every press opportunity, like all the things, like we were really grinding. And looking back now, we realize like how close we kind of were to burning out. And you know, we've definitely made some intentional changes to what we do to try to maximize our home time, and make sure that we're prioritizing like our mental health and our families and things like that now. But just in addition to that, like bringing in Adam Bastine, it's just been like a breath of fresh air, and it feels like, it doesn't feel like work anymore. It feels fun again, and yeah, he's just brought such a nice vibe.
So what in your, you know, dealing with this, kind of going back to the fame side of things, I'm guessing at least every once in a while people recognize you on the street or ever just going about your day. How do you deal with the fame of being in such a successful music group and having your face on the internet everywhere?
Yeah, I mean that it just comes with the territory, you know. It's part of it, and it's you know, you in music these days, you know, with the success comes notoriety, and with that, you know, comes like being recognizable. Like it's you want that, but you know, just know there are like two sides to that coin. You know, you don't get to like pick and choose when you're recognizable unless you wear a costume, you know, or disguise or something. And so I try to keep that in mind. You know, there are some what feel like inopportune times to be recognized, but you know, it's what we've chosen. You know, we put ourselves out there and our faces, and we're successful because people know us and like us, and you know, and so it's really cool when someone like sees you and goes, "Hey, are you that guy from that thing? Like, I love your music," you know? Like, that's really cool. That's what you want. That's how I'm able to make a living, because people feel that way. And so most of the time when I'm able, like, I'll stop and chat with someone. I'll take a photo with them. You know, there's you know, some exceptions, you know, but outside of, I would say, like, being near the venue on a show day, you know, because then there's like, chances are there are a ton of other fans around. And if you say yes, the next thing you know, there's going to line form,
Yeah.
and you're going to be stuck there all day. And also it devalues like the VIP session and that whole VIP experience as well. But if, you know, if I'm in an airport or something, like, unless I'm late to a flight, you know, or if I'm eating, if I have a mouthful of food and someone approaches me at that moment, it's not always the most fun, but most people are super respectful. And I'm just like so appreciative that they enjoy what we do and allow us to do what we do, you know? Yeah.
I want to touch base on people you've collaborated with. Who are some, or if there's like one that really sticks out, some of the best people that you've collaborated where you've been like, this is crazy that we're collaborating, but also for the future, who are some people that you would like to collaborate with?
Sure. I mean, most of our collaborations, especially in the country music world, have been mind blowing. The first collaboration that we ever did with, like, you know, icons was the Oak Ridge Boys and doing Elvira. That was so surreal. And, you know, for me personally, like, getting to trade off with Richard Sturban on the Papa Mau Maus was like, I could retire right now. You know, it doesn't get any better than this. And not just that, the fact that they, you know, were willing to join us on our very outside the box arrangement of their biggest hit. You know, it's like really cool of them to be like, yeah, we'll do our biggest song your way, you know? Yeah. And take the time to record with us and shoot a music video and all that. But then I also think that particular collaboration opened the doors to all the other collaborations after that, you know, because so many of the artists, I think, just went and saw that we did that with them, and they're like, oh, okay, they're legit, you know. Kenny Rogers, insane. He's like, he was the next level, you know. He was, I think, the first country artist to like appear on the cover of Rolling Stone. You know, he was like different level of crossover success, superstar. Yeah, Alabama doesn't really get any bigger in country music than those guys. So I mean, it's like all of them have been just crazy. I will say recently we sang with Jimmy Fortune, who was in the Statler Brothers, another iconic vocal group. And he is 7 years old and still has this unbelievably pure and powerful tenor voice. And we don't like encounter that very much, you know. It's like hard to keep your chops up, you know, as you age, especially if you're a tenor. And so I've just like never really heard a voice that has stayed that pristine. So that was really cool.
Yeah. Wow. And then this is kind of a similar question, but as far
I
as
didn't answer who we want to collaborate with. Everyone.
everyone,
You name it. In the country music world, we want to do something with them. I mean, seriously, but particularly like the, you know, like the female country artists. That's really fun for us because we haven't done too much of that, and I think it'd be fun to, you know, do a duet. I mean, I guess it would be a sextet at that point, but, you know, like have Bastine sing a duet with some female like powerhouse, you know, like just let them get to belting together. It'd be amazing.
Yeah. And like personally for you, I bet if you got like Billy Joel, that would be crazy.
Well,
dude.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Rascal Flatts just got back together, so let's do something.
And to wrap up this interview, we ask this question to every single guest. Of everything that's been said, everything that's been discussed, if there was one thing that you'd want someone to remember, what would that be?
That your batteries just died and now we're filming on an iPhone instead of your fancy camera.
Exactly.
Were you really hoping that you'd be able to edit it and no one would notice? Is it gonna look that good?
We'll see. Well, that'll be a test of my editing skills.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel any better, one of our biggest videos is for How Great Thou Art, and we filmed it in the Austrian Alps. And so we flew our video team at the time all the way over to Europe to film that music video. And then we drove all the way up into this remote area of the Alps. And then once we got up there, one of them realized had left the batteries to the camera.
Oh man.
Oh my.
A ways away, like an hour away.
Oh my.
Oh,
So we had
wow.
to kill some time while.
It must have just like hurt. Just
Yeah.
like, oh.
So just
Yeah.
know that, you know, at
Yeah.
every level, there's
Yeah.
battery issues. So don't feel bad
Yeah.
about that. No, to answer your question, I don't know. I guess the one thing I would want someone to take away from this, especially if you're an aspiring musician, is if you love music, if it is a part of you, so much so that you're willing to do it for free, then just keep doing it no matter what. Just do it, do it, do it. Never stop, never let anything or anyone stand in your way. And if it's authentic and good, it'll find its audience.
So yeah, that was really fun. That was really great talking to you. I think we learned a lot. At least I have. I think he knows a little more about home free and all that than I do. But for those watching, for those listening, thank you so much for being here. We love doing what we do. We're out in Nashville right now. That's insane. We're from Idaho. There's nothing in Idaho. So coming out here, it's a whole experience. So thank you so much for tuning in, listening in. If you did enjoy what you're seeing, be sure to follow, subscribe, whatever software you're on. You'll know what to do. Thank you so much to our guest, Tim Foust. If you are interested in acapella music, make sure to check him out. He's got his own channel, as well as, of course, Home Free and all of that stuff. And, of course, we'll put all those links in the description so they have access to that. Otherwise...
So, fun story. This is how I met Tim prior to this. On his website, he has a music service option where you can schedule a 30-minute Zoom call with him. And you can ask him questions and then he gives you advice. And so if that's something of interest, we'll leave a link in the description to that if any of you are interested in that.
Go to timfoustmusic.com, check it out, especially if you're a bass singer. I'd love to give you some tips and tricks that I've learned through the years. And while you're there, check out some of the special events I do. I do the Tim Foust and Friends Birthday Bash in Nashville, Tennessee, and the Tim Foust and Friends Oregon Getaway, where you can actually come and spend a whole weekend camping with Tim Foust and Friends while we entertain you. You guys should come too.
We have a bunch more interviews coming your way, so be sure to stay tuned for that. And until next time, thanks for watching.